And then we went there to see the gray whales. And then we actually just booked a company, random. And I mean, in our plan, the people I went there with, my friends, we've worked with animals, we're aware of things and so on. And so then, you go with your boat, you see in the gray whales, and you know that sometimes the whales get close to the boats because they have these barnacles. So it feels good for them when you scratch them. And then it's like, in the wild, maybe you see them, maybe you don't see them, maybe they come close, maybe they don't come close. The idea is that you're there and they are the ones controlling the interaction. So what we saw was that the boat was going to the whale to make the people touch the whale. And the whale was never in control. And then it was this boat, and then now it's my turn, and now it's my turn. And then there was the whale with the baby and 10 boats around. And we felt so bad about it. We were like, didn't came for this. Like, this is just, this cannot be positive. Like, then the next day we wanted to do a different activity, but then we basically, I met a scientist that was working there, and then he said, there is this other company that I will recommend you to go with. And then we changed our plan, and then we went to look for gray whales again, but with a different company. And then this company took us somewhere that it was like nobody. And the gray whales, they didn't come for like getting scratched. There were so many whales like doing different things. We saw them for hours, spy hopping, doing a lot of different behaviors. They never came, but it was much better because we saw the spectacle of nature just right there.
So then these people are the ones now taking, if you want to go and see the sea turtle nesting in Costa Rica, you will have to go for a guide. It's mandatory. You cannot go on your own. And then you will have to go with these guys, and they take you in the beach at night, and they show you everything very carefully, and they give you all the explanations and the educational part. And now they are the ones protecting it because they actually experienced the time when they were no turtles and they didn't have money to live from it. So now it's a good story of tourism having like a good impact in this case.
So there is a whale watching company here in Tenerife that is called, it's sustainable whale watching, and they do it very well. So then the people that is part of that company, they're so passionate about not only what they do about their environment, about the Canary Islands, about the whales, about everything. Yeah. They also do diving. So there was a place here that it was very epic to go diving because you usually saw sea turtles there, and it became so crowded on boats, divers, snorkelers, but also like overfishing, that at the end it became like the turtles were gone, and it was all full of sea-urchins because there was no fish, there was not the turtles eat.
There was an invasion, yeah.
There was an invasion, and also there was not enough turtles. The system got out of control. It wasn't like it became a desert of sea-urchins. So then he in his free time, out of passion, people working in this whale watching company, when they were going diving, or when they were not going out to see the whales, will go diving, and they had a plan where they will like open the sea-urchins so that you're basically like, you're killing them, but they're also becoming food for the little fish that they were. So you're not only taking them out, but you're also like kind of using them in a smart way. And the whole system got completely recovered. Like the sea turtles came back, the fish came back. It became again like beautiful and nice. And that was out of their passion, their free time, and their goodwill. It's very inspiring, I think. And who wouldn't want to contribute to people who do that in their free time? I mean, I would say that yeah, like it's a bit like, now that we're a bit on the topic of the sustainable tourism, it's like, can it actually, like, I mean, when you think about tourism itself, the whole industry, is like, could it in any way ever be any sustainable? Because at the end, it's just us spending resources for having a live experience, right? And then the way I see it with these experiences is that we're not aware. It's kind of like, how you say, like, we're seeing it as a right that we have, right? We have the right. I'm alive. I have the right to have these experiences and use these earth resources because I'm on my right. And the same way I'm on my right to like play with this baby elephant or like go in the water with all of these sharks at any cost because I am paying my money for it. And so I'm seeing tourism as a dangerous impact on.
Just thought I'd have a quick word just to recognise that this is the 10th series, an anniversary of a kind. It's been 2 years, 60 guests. I just wanted to say thank you for all of your perspectives on travel and how appreciative I am of your time. It's been absolutely amazing. And now, back to this week's essay. And now, back to this week's episode. And now, back to this week's episode. And now, back to this week's highlights. Ariana, Sara, welcome to the Nifty Travel Podcast.
Well, thank you, Alex, for having us. We're very excited about this opportunity to be here today with you. Yeah.
Thank you for hosting us.
Yeah, you're most welcome. And just because it's two guests today, you don't get out of my first question, and that is, I'd like to find out your first memories of travel.
Wow. First memories. Well, I have mine because actually I was there this last weekend. So my first memories of travel, being an adult and alone, it was during my Erasmus exchange, during my career of biologist. And I went to Slovenia, Ljubljana, to the city. And it was amazing. I remember getting there alone and I don't know, like everything was amazing, like finding everything new, a new language, new people, new culture, different food, people from all over the world, everyone talking in English. I was starting to use my my first English words in the real world. So I remember it like with very like good memories and very warm.
Yeah. Well, for me, when you asked the question, I went directly to the first, which was with my parents, and it was to Disneyland Paris, and we were like 13 years. Well, I was 13 years old, and so then it was amazing. I mean, it was amazing, obviously, because it was the first time I got into a plane, which now people do all the time. But when I was 13, it was quite special. And yeah, I was. I mean, of course, I was 13, so I guess I didn't appreciate it as I would right now. But that was the first one. And then by myself, it was actually Marrakech. And I was 18. And then it was a group of girls who were all 18. And then we went with this naiveness of like, everyone is good and we're exploring. And everything was, we never had, I mean, it was an amazing trip because it's so different culturally. And so, yeah.
Yeah. No, it's exciting to look back on these things. So no, it's it's good to know that you have travel memories of meaning. So, well, today I have a feeling that animals is going to be a theme of our conversation. But before we get into the what and the why, I'd like to find out a little about both of you. How we become aware of travel as a thing, and why do you think so many people are, get excited about travel?
You want to start or should I?
You start. You go.
Gosh, I mean, yes, you're right. We're gonna talk a lot about animals. In my personal experience, luckily, I've been traveling always because of work, and I didn't feel the need to travel in my free time because it was always like on scientific expeditions, which were like in remote places that were not very crowded, having like the real experience because you're like working there. It was always working with animals. I'm a biologist, so it was always like studying these species in their natural environment. So I didn't feel the need to travel because they were very fulfilling, and every time it was related with animals. But of course, I mean, it is unavoidable to get into the country, the culture, the people. We're collaborating always with local people, so like they will show us around. They will like so then it was the whole full experience. And while in some places it was so remote that there was no tourism, but some other places it was very touristic. Like it could be Iceland. And I remember also the first time I went to Iceland, it was when Iceland was becoming very, very popular. I think Justin Bieber was there, and then everyone suddenly wanted to go to Iceland. And there it was when I saw for the first time how different it was to study an animal in a touristic place or to study an animal in a remote place. It was really difficult, especially when tourism is around a specific animal, that it could be like whale watching, humpback whales in Iceland, or penguins in Antarctica, or like when the tourist activities around the animal, then our labor as scientists was really hard because, of course, you see this contrast on how it changes when the tourists are there and when they're not there. And we could not get in many cases, we couldn't get like valid data while the tourist activity was going on. And so that's a bit how we started with AnimalWise. Also, because it is clear that right now traveling is not just something that you want to do on your holidays. It is becoming part of like people's identity somehow. There's just like not something that you will do if you have the resources in your holiday that year. It's something you have to do. It's like
you plan your year accordingly for that.
Yeah, exactly. So I think there's been this big switch on how we perceive travel, and we're not happy with going take the car and going 3 hours away to the coast. We wanna go to Bali, and we're gonna swim with the whale sharks, and we wanna like hug gray whales in Mexico, and we wanna do all of these very exotic experiences with wildlife. And it's nice, but it's also really dangerous. That's a bit of where we come. And I think I talk too much.
No. You are right. Yeah, I think in my case, it was actually the other way around. I started traveling not because of work, just for fun, with friends, with this, how do you say, like with this need of exploring the world and escaping from your normal life and the things that you already know and wanted to learn more from others. And there's where I started feeling like I don't have enough time. Like I come for a week and I don't have enough time to visit this place or to get the real culture. And then is when I decided to start living in the different places. So then if I was going for a place like I wanted to go to Costa Rica to see the sea turtle, so instead of going for 1 week, then I'm going to stay for months doing volunteering and living the real experience for months, or the same in some other countries. So then you can get the real feeling, I think. And yeah, exactly. Also, when you are living there and you see the tourists coming, like, and doing these all crazy things that Sara was saying, like hugging a whale or
taking the baby turtles,
chasing a turtle,
them.
All this stuff, then you see the reality, like all these tourists coming, like thousands of people visiting every single year, doing the same things to the animals. It really has an effect and impact in the nature of these ecosystems. And yeah, after years, I met Sara doing some research, and then I started working in the tourism industry. And I think that's where we make like the perfect match, like with all the experience we had traveling, with all these animal experiences, with her experience in the research. And we were like, okay, let's do something for this cause.
Yeah. Okay, so before we get into more specifics, I wanted to, by the way, Sara, you're absolutely right about travel identity. I mean, it's not a new thing. My parents were like that in the 1960s and 70s, and I'm grateful for them that they swept me up in the magic that is travel. You also mentioned, Ariana, about actually living in places. I wanted to sort of get your perspective of, well, you briefly touched on it, but what for you are the main differences when it comes to living in a location rather than just being there for a couple of weeks?
I mean, I think this is difficult to answer, but as an overview, I get the feeling when I travel like for a weekend or for a week, it's like you don't have the time to get like in deep in the culture, and everything is like nowadays like super touristic. And even if you don't want, you get like the most touristic experiences and the most like touristic part. And that's the part that I don't like. But then when you're living there, you have the time to meet local people, to know how they live, how their families, how they, what do they do for work, like to live real experiences with them, not just the experience that they sell you to go to visit this community and do local food, but in reality, it's like a touristic activity, like to be really involved with them and see how they live it in their daily lives. Also like spending like holidays or special days or events that they have, like that they're important in their cultures. I think that's also really different that when you are visiting.
Yeah, I mean, in 2 weeks you have your checklist of like, before I leave, I have to do all of this, and that's all you have time for. You don't have time to slow down to like, oh, today I'm just gonna walk around this place, or I think it's a lot. The time constraining doesn't let you slow down and pay attention to details, I guess.
Yeah, it's very much about surface level, isn't it? And the longer you stay anywhere, that really sort of changes your perspective. Now, you both mentioned a decent list of countries that have made an impression on you. Would you like to pick a few countries? Pick a few of those countries and sort of explain why they touched your inner selves.
Sure. I mean, for me, I think, the first one that will come to my mind is actually South Georgia. I think it's the most beautiful place in the planet so far that I've seen. And it's just, first, before you go there, it's quite interesting. It is really regulated because they used to have rats as an invasive species. So right now, when you go to South Georgia, it's very restricted with the permits, and there will be like people checking like if you have a grain of sand in the pocket of your jacket. So before you get there, you have to like take your boots, clean them with a clipper to take away all the sand, get a vacuum cleaner, vacuum the inside of your boots, the inside of your jackets. So before you're landing in South Georgia, you already are feeling like this place has to be quite special for like humanity to take this so much work, right? And then when you're landing, it is so wild. It is just like, I mean, you have elephant seals. Depending on when you go, you have the males fighting with other males because of the females. Those fights are insane. It's crazy how big they are. It's like being surrounded by, I don't know if you like Star Wars, but it's all Jabba the Hutt everywhere. Then you have the king penguins. And what I've loved about it is that it is so wild that, of course, the animals, they don't care. Like they're not afraid of humans. So they're curious. You're landing and you have the fur seals coming and looking at you and coming really close. The king penguins walking towards you and being like, "Ooh, what is this equipment? What is this box? They're so like innocent. It's like, so you're like there, like in a nature documentary surrounded by millions of animals, and it's just life happening in front of you, and you see that you're not being, I don't know, you're like just a spectator. And of course the nature is super dramatic with the mountains, the ocean, the green, the colors. I think it's, of course there's no culture, there's no people there, but
but that's the kind of tourism we like.
But that's that's the best, I would say, for me.
For me, I have many places that I like, but if I think in it that way, like living like in a documentary, I would say also Costa Rica, because I think it's one of the best places like that holds the biggest biodiversity in the planet, concentrated in a little country. And at that time we were living in the jungle, and I think it was kind of the same, like living with a lot of species. At the beginning was a bit scary. You get to bed and then you will find all kind of animals in your bed or in the shower, and you're like but then you get used to it, and then the second day you find a giant snake that is with venom, like
venomous.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then you're like, oh
yeah, the snake.
And then you're walking at night and you know that they are jaguars, for example, and the first days you're like super careful, like I don't want to be alone here at night. And then 1 week after you're like, it smells like jaguar, they've been here. Oh, can you see the steps in the sand? Yeah, okay. And getting used to that, then when I think about it right now, it's like very crazy, like to have lived all of those things.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? First impressions can be quite surprising. Yeah, I remember watching a movie a long time ago. I think it was called Robinson Crusoe, and he thought he'd landed on a remote island, and he had. And he ran around the island and saw footprints, thought it was somebody else, and realized it was himself.
Yeah, of course.
Of course, it was a story, but and a good movie. So we're here to talk about animals and tourism. So I suppose we should start by, when did you personally feel aware that, you know, yes, there's travel, yes, there's animals, but when did you suddenly start realizing, well, there's more to this that we need to be thinking about? You know, what about animal welfare? You know, where does biology come into this? You know, when do these things all start coming together and making sense for you?
I think, to be honest, being more like an adult, like it was some years ago, but not when I started traveling. Because I remember when I started traveling, I think we all have committed errors, like when you book an activity and you don't know that it's wrong. And we all have done like activities that probably now I wouldn't do or I would regret. But you didn't know at that moment, and still now there's not much information on these kind of topics. But I think the main moment was when I started working in the tourism industry with a big tour operator, and yeah, like receiving the complaints from the clients, really, how do you say, like worried about the situation of the animals or how they were being used, like for rides or for events or for shows. And I think that was the main moment that I thought, like, okay, maybe, I mean, it's not just me doing these activities, thousands of people going on the same day to see the same animals. Or I don't know, you go to a safari and it's not just your car of the safari, it's like thousands of cars. And I think that's when I started realizing how much impact we have, because of course it wouldn't happen anything if it's just us, three of us traveling, but it's three and three and three, and there's not much regulation in many places, and there's a lot of misinformation, as Sara was saying at the beginning. Like, we all see in the social media, like, it's normal, like, to hug a whale or to be holding a koala or whatever, when we
playing with a baby elephant.
Exactly,
or it looks like harmless.
Picture with a baby tiger, and all these things that we think that are not harmful, and then you start realizing that it's not just one baby tiger, and if they have that baby tiger, it's because it was separated from the mom, and
it will not grow. You cannot have 100 adult tigers. What do you do with 100 adult tigers? So of course they will like euthanize them and keep rolling their business with just the babies. And
and then I think when you see that the tourism industry is that big, then you start realizing like how much impact we have in all these things and in the poor animals.
I think for me it was when I went to Baja California in Mexico. That was actually a holiday trip. It was and then we went there to see the gray whales, and then we actually just booked a company random. And I mean, in our plan, the people I went there with, my friends, we've worked with animals, we're aware of things and so on. And so then you go with your boat, you see in the gray whales, and you know that sometimes the whales get close to the boats because they have these barnacles. So it feels good for them when you scratch them. And then it's like, in the wild, maybe you see them, maybe you don't see them, maybe they come close, maybe they don't come close. The idea is that you're there and they are the ones controlling the interaction. So what we saw was that the boat was going to the whale to make the people touch the whale, and the whale was never in control. And then it was this boat, and then now it's my turn, and now it's my turn, and then there was the whale with the baby and 10 boats around, and we felt so bad about it. We were like, didn't came for this. Like, this is just, I mean, this cannot be positive. Like, then the next day we wanted to do a different activity, but then we basically, I met a scientist that was working there, and then he said, there is this other company that I will recommend you to go with. And then we changed our plan, and then we went to look for gray whales again, but with a different company. And then this company took us somewhere that it was like nobody. And the gray whales, they didn't come for like getting scratched. There were so many whales like doing different things. We saw them for hours, spy hopping, doing a lot of different behaviors. They never came, but it was much better because we saw the spectacle of nature just right there. It's not necessary to like scratch the whale to enjoy the activity. So there was like, this is a problem.
So I guess what you both noticed then was that there's a difference between attempting to control the animal environment around you versus simply observing it.
Exactly. And it happens a lot too with the sharks, right now in some places. That is like, why do you feed the sharks as a company? And it's like, because if not, they don't come so close. And it's like, but why do they need to be so close? Can you not dive and see the sharks and that's it?
Yeah, but I think the problem now is what we were mentioning, like the social media, like because the tourists are asking for that, because you've seen it on videos that it's super normal to have a picture laying with 10 sharks around swimming or diving with 100 sharks. And you see it's in the Maldives, for example, and then you go to the Maldives and the only thing you're asking for to the company is like, I want the same picture, or I want to dive with the sharks, or to snorkel with the sharks, or to see the sharks. And then the company is the only option that they have to give that to the clients is feeding
the sharks.
Yeah, it's kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy, isn't it? They see the pictures and everybody thinks they can replicate it easily, but it doesn't happen like that. So I suppose it's changed. How do you think these early experiences changed how you thought about the tourism industry?
I would say that yeah, like it's a bit like, now that we're a bit on the topic of the sustainable tourism, it's like, can it actually, like, I mean, when you think about tourism itself, the whole industry is like, could it in any way ever be any sustainable? Because at the end, it's just us spending resources for having a live experience, right? And then the way I see it with these experiences is that we're not aware. It's kind of like, how you say, like, we're seeing it as a right that we have, right? We have the right. I'm alive. I have the right to have these experiences and use these earth resources because I'm on my right. And the same way I'm on my right to like play with this baby elephant, or like go in the water with all of these sharks at any cost, because I am paying my money for it. And so I'm seeing tourism as a dangerous impact on the planet. And of course, you never know how much is, like, when you're very into one topic, then you see it like, oh, this is really bad. And then when you put it into perspective, it's like, well, maybe it's not. But it is bad on the sense that, I don't know, when you think about other resources, it's like you get something out of it, and then out of tourism, the only thing we get is the pleasure of the experience. And of course, it's nice when you're open-minded, other cultures. That helps, I think. Globalization, the development of like being more empathy with other people, other cultures, so on and so forth, right? But at the end, it's like it takes a big chunk of the planet resources, and so it is dangerous the direction that this is going, with the increase and the attitude that we're all having towards it.
Mm-hmm. So, in a sense, is this, or was this, an inspiration for why you both met and felt that you should create something? So we've talked about some of the things you've observed, but what gaps did you see that you felt you needed to fill?
Well, I think the main gap, as I was saying, is legislation. Well, legislation or regulation of the activities. I mean, it's always different in different countries and also in different destinations. And of course, it cannot be the same legislation for an activity that you have some species, and in another place you have some other species. But at least putting some focus on this topic, because until now it's been like no one thought about the animals in nature and how tourism is impacting them. Some people has been complaining for years for the animals that they are in captivity or used like for zoos or for attractions, but they don't complain about the impact we made in the ecosystems, like in the wild animals, that we are also affecting them a lot. So I think, one of the main gaps is regulation or standardizations, like some norms to follow or codes of conduct to follow in these kind of activities. We have some in specific ones, but not very detailed. And I think that also comes together with the misinformation. And I think that's the biggest problem, because us as tourists, I mean, if I don't have the information, I go to a country and they try to sell me the whatever experience. And we tend to think that if a business is selling that, it's regulated by someone, by the government or by anybody. And the reality is that many times that is not happening. But you as a tourist, you believe that someone is taking care of that, and that if they are selling it, it's okay. Yeah, it's okay to take a selfie with a sloth. Maybe it's not regulated and it comes from illegal traffic, but as a tourist, we don't have that information. So, and also from social media, we tend to think that some activities, we tend to normalize these kind of activities when they are not normal and they actually have a really bad impact. But in the social media, you only get the good part of the pictures and how cute it is, but not the other one of how you are affecting the animal. So I think the main part and the main problem we wanted to address is the misinformation from the tourists, also to help them, like giving them the tools and information on how they should conduct or do the different activities, how they should act when they want to see the different species, but also at the same time for the companies, because we are not talking about super big companies. We are talking about small businesses, owners that they've been all their lives driving a jeep for a safari or driving a boat to go and see the whale sharks, whatever. And they probably don't have the resources to have those trainings or that kind of information on how they're affecting on these animals. So we are in the middle of there, like to try to train both sides.
That we think that bad practices come from misinformation and not from a bad intention.
Exactly.
And another thing that is, like something to think about is that is such a difficult topic, because, for example, you have Africa, right? It's a continent, but then it's a lot of countries, and each country has its own legislation. And then you have elephant migration, who go through a lot of different countries. It's the same elephants, and then they are protected in Kenya, but in another country there is trophy hunting. So like those elephants are hunted here, and then lower down they're protected. And then it's like, what is the difference between trophy hunting of a endangered species and poaching? Like one is really like avoided in one country. There's a lot of resources on the country to like avoid that, but then here is legal. And then it's like, but if those elephants will disappear from the planet, it will not only affect Africa, it will affect the whole planet, because they're part of a ecosystem who has a balance, who has like a trophic chain that is being altered. And then it will not only, like, the problem is not that just people will not go see elephants. The problem is that
how it will affect the other species.
Yeah, we don't know the consequences on the landscape, on the climate, on the rivers, on the plants. We don't know what are the consequences, or like the impact we're having on a wild species. I mean, in a zoo, it's all artificial, it's controlled in captivity, but then in the wild, this impact is just like, there's no way to predict what is the outcome. So it's really hard to somehow regulate when you want to regulate, because even the regulations will change a lot. So Ariana was saying, like, for example, the UK actually has a law always been like forward, or like more, how you say, like advanced, step ahead regarding animal welfare, that is not allowed to sell activities that compromise animal welfare. But then it's like, and how
you control that all over the world, like.
Yeah, no, you're right. you've touched on the size of the problem. So do you think part of the challenge then is that welfare is underrepresented, and is there certain areas of it that need more attention than others?
Yeah,
100%.
I think it is, especially because when we talk about animal welfare, everyone thinks about like the food industry, the food animals like chickens,
the
cows, eggs,
chickens.
but no one thinks about the welfare of these wild animals that it's also being affected. So I think it's a racing topic, and it's pretty new, and also for in the research sector.
Yeah, it's definitely like not a modern, let's say,
topic.
Yeah, compared to others. And also, when people think about animal welfare, they're thinking about the lack of suffering. So like, you're not, if you're not causing them pain, then welfare is okay. But we're not thinking about the underlying stress, the effects on reproduction in chronic stress, that sometimes
change in the diets, many other things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, let's look at it from through the lens of a traveler then. So do you think, or what do you think are the things that a traveler should be thinking about? We've already sort of said, oh yeah, lots of people think of certain destinations as being very animal centric. So are there red flags, to put a word on it, that people should look out for if they're wondering whether what they're thinking and doing is a good thing, or whether the company that they're planning to go with is, how do you know if the company is going to represent the animals you wish to see in a positive way? I mean, how do you know? You may never have gone there before.
Mm-hmm. I think it first it depends if the activity is with animals under human care, or if it's because also there's a lot of tourism around sanctuaries, for example, or stuff like that. That's totally different. But then if we're talking about seeing wildlife, I would say first, like all these companies that they guarantee you that you're gonna see it, I mean, that's impossible. We're not in the zoo, so I think that's one of the
unless you feed them.
Exactly. And then unless you feed them, that's another of the big red flags. Like there are some places in the world or some species that they use some odors or playback sounds or food, like to attract the animals. I think that's one of the things we shouldn't support. Also touching or trying to catch the animals or to pet them.
Mm-hmm.
What else?
I mean, this is interesting because it's also like when she was saying it's different when you have under human care or wild. It's also like important to make the distinction between domestic animals and wild animals, because wild animals, even if they're born around humans and if they are like desensitized and habituated, they're wild animals. So, for example, you can never have a safe encounter in direct contact with an elephant unless there is like a submissive relationship. There are certain animals that because they're wild and because they're big, or that they're also predators. They don't have to be predators, but when they're big enough and they're wild, they haven't been selected to be tame or to be, their behavior is exactly the same as the wild ones. So when you can bath an elephant, it's because when you leave, the treatment with the elephant is not all love, let's say it like that. And so this direct contact, when it's with wild animals, it is, behind we have a relationship of submission and domination, and like that is not positive. So
Now, one thing that is quite prevalent today in a lot of regions is there are a lot of national parks. There are marine parks, and one subject that's come up quite a bit in conversations I've had on the podcast is that some parks get visited more than other parks. There never seems to be, unless I'm missing something, some parks seem to get a lot of visitors, and that's where problems can happen. So in a safari, there might be too many jeeps going to particular areas, and so that photograph you thought you were going to get, what you actually get is a picture of 15 other jeeps, not the animal you were hoping to see. Whereas if there could be more even tourist distribution among parks, do you think there are lessons to be learnt here in terms of distribution, or should there be, like it is in some parks hardly get any visitors, and some parks don't allow visitors at all? Where do you think the boundaries should be?
That would be neat. I think that needs to be studied case by case, because at the end, of course, it's like when you go to Africa, it's because you want to have an experience in the wild. So like if you have 100 cars around you, that's probably not what you were paying for. so I guess at the end it ruins it for you too. I mean, so that needs to be kind of like, I think, studied case by case, like, because as you said, like some parks maybe they're not so popular, but then it's like it would be nice to like redistribute the people, but then in practical it's not so easy, because then everyone wants to see like the cross of the river of the like, so it's like, well, if I go to Africa, I go once in my life, so I want to do Masai Mara.
But I think that's the way, as you were saying before, that's the way we want to travel nowadays, that I need to do my checklist, and in my checklist is Masai Mara, this and this, and you don't look for other options because you don't want to miss those, but probably there are better options or better parks that you can see the same species, but no one told you about it, because in these travel packages they always take you to the same places. And I think that can be changed in our way of traveling. When you start being more conscious and you want to travel more responsible, you start looking for other options, because I think it happens to us. Like now, if I go to these kind of places, I don't want to go to the crowded place. I prefer to be alone and have less chances to see the animals, but in a natural, as you said, like with the whales, like
truly wild.
Exactly.
So there should be a way to like redistribute somehow, but that would be tricky. Of course. And it is a solution, and I think it's a way forward. And because of course, like if all the boats to see humpback whales in Iceland leave from Húsavík, then the humpback whales will like move away from Húsavík and go somewhere else.
I think it's really difficult, because sometimes I try to think about this topic, like what if we redistribute everything, or instead of visiting always the same places, we expand and go to new ones, like in these countries. But then I think, is it better to start exploiting and impacting in the ones that
is still a bit like wild?
Exactly. Or is it just better to keep them as in those places, and the other ones keep them
empty and wild?
Exactly. It's very difficult.
We never thought about this, Alex.
It's all a balance after all. Now, you're both interested in the science behind helping animals. Now, measuring is a very important part of this. But what is it? What does measuring and what do you measure? What does it all mean in practice?
Well, here we use the 5 domains model, which is, I think, the newest model that is being developed, tested, and validated on animal welfare. And it basically consists on, it's called 5 domains because there's 5 domains, like nutrition, environment, behavior, health. And then they all kind of like, if those are generally well met, then there's the mental state that basically we can assume that there is a good mental state. And they're all, of course, interconnected. So it's like, imagine, for example, I mean, it's a stupid example, but I think it illustrates very well. Like, your mental state is very optimistic, very happy because you're gonna start dancing lessons tomorrow. You've been looking forward, you're healthy, you are like you can do your behavior normally and everything, and then you break your leg. So your health is being affected, your behavior is gonna change, and then your mental state is also gonna change because you were so excited, now you're disappointed, now you cannot walk, you cannot dance, and then so it is all interconnected. And so this is a bit of like, we use this model and we apply it for every activity and every animal because it's species specific. So we take, for example, in wild animals, when you have the nutrition domain, their foraging activity, how the tourism will affect their foraging capacity of the species.
Making sure we are not altering their diets.
Yeah, exactly. With the health, that there is not vehicle like impacts. Of course, the contamination,
the weather,
exactly.
The air pollution, for example.
Zoonosis, transmission of diseases. When we touch them, we can transmit them. Bacteria and diseases that their body are not ready to fight.
And the behavior, that we are not changing their behaviors, their swimming routes or the routes they have. If they are reproducing or mating, for example, that we are not interrupting that, or if they are resting, that we are not stopping that.
For example, imagine in felids, like lions, tigers, pumas, usually the female is always very protective of their babies, because if a male finds them, they will kill the babies so that the female gets into heat again immediately, and then they have a chance to mate. And then you go in with your cars, and animals learn so fast. It is unbelievable. You go with your car, and then you see a lion with the babies, and it's like, oh my God, there's so many cars. And then a male is around, and he's like, I've learned that when there is cars, there is something. So you're exposing that female with their offspring to a predator that maybe will not see it, because he's learned this connection, and this is unnatural, and you're affecting directly. So all of these things we kind of measure. So we measure behavior with ethograms, nutrition. We also, because we take animal welfare inside sustainability, we also see how much the company invests in conservation projects, and how much the information that they're giving to the people is accurate and real, and is educational, and other things like that. Not only animal welfare, but the core will be animal welfare to be responsible with the species. Yeah.
So you mentioned ethogram. Could you explain what one is and how does it help in your knowledge about animal welfare?
So an ethogram is basically like we're recording the behavior of the animal, and we're doing it. So, for example, imagine we're in a jeep in a safari, right? So as soon as we see that there is a species and we're gonna start approaching, we start recording right there, so that we can see what the animal is doing before the interaction happens, as soon as we see them, just like what is happening. And then, so then depending, for example, if we have marine mammals, you can take the breathing rate, because you can see when they're breathing. In a safari, of course, you cannot see when they're breathing, but you can see their head movements. If they start to look eye contact with you, how many times, if this is increasing or not, if they're foraging or if they're resting, if they stop doing it
because of you.
Exactly. If they
move away, that sometimes happens. like
Exactly.
to see how really we are affecting on their behaviors.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's basically recording all the behaviors they are doing at that time during the
Before, during, and after.
Do you think one of the challenges of this, because I'm obviously auditing locations where there's lots of interactions with animals, you know, the thing is, we know that humans have been around for a long time, and therefore, as far as we can tell, there's been interactions going on for perhaps millennia. So, what are the how? So, I suppose there's two sides to the question. Is how, haven't we been influencing each other for a long time already? And what's changing, or what's really accelerating in your own minds in terms of, is it just about because humans are more prevalent and more sort of active than our fellow animals? Is that the main thing that's changed?
To me, it's the speed, which is a bit of like when people say about climate change, like, yeah, but it happened before, even before humans were here. Yes, but not at this speed. This is I think the problem. We've been interacting for, like, yeah, as you said, thousands and thousands of years, but the way that human population has increased, and like the amount, so like an elephant maybe within a lifetime will see how there will be 1 or 2 cars in a safari to 100, and then they're not having the time to adapt because we're not giving them the time. We're not giving them the time to find alternatives to like the increase of noise in the ocean, which is exponential. We're not giving them the time to find alternatives. And then there is a very interesting study. It is theoretical, but it's a model, and it's like there's been already proven that animals like us can have an optimistic way of thinking or a pessimistic way of thinking. And depending on a lot of factors, this will influence on which one you take. One of them is unpredictability. So when the world that they're living in becomes more and more unpredictable, they become more pessimistic. So the decisions that they will make, first they will be under chronic stress already, and then they will make pessimistic decisions. We're increasing all that unpredictability by changing the climate and also changing their landscape and environment because of our presence. And so these will, of course, then affect, like, that is the difference, I will say. The speed and the amount. So, yeah, the quantity and the...
Yeah. So I suppose that makes doing audits even more important than before. So I suppose there's the audit in the wild where there's very little interaction, but there's also an audit you can do in terms of in partnership with tourism operators and communities. So what do you think we need to learn from doing audits? Because if you don't know what's happening, how do you know what to do about it?
It's really difficult because I think, as Sara was saying, is everything is very specific. So it's you will need to do different things. But I think the easiest thing is to have the less impact in the animals or in the ecosystem. So that's like the easiest thing. And from an audit perspective, it's difficult to assess right now because it will totally change, as we were saying, if it's animals under human care or if it's wild animals.
In AnimalWise, we're actually creating auditing protocols. So like we're using the scientific literature of what we know about not only the species, but sometimes there is studies about like ship noise, how much noise will affect the seabird species in particular, or this other one, of course. Then you can take those results and combine it with and create like
indicators.
An audit indicators. It will, of course, I think auditing will be important, but just because of what we mentioned before, that I think companies sometimes they make mistakes because they don't know. Like, for example, here in the Canary Islands, that's where we live, they can go whale watching with different boats, right? And then one of them is more like party type. So you go see the whales, and then you're playing music and drinking beers, and then it's like, there is a level of decibels that is harmful. But I don't think the company even know what a decibel is. so they just playing the music that it sounds nice, and that's it. But if we come with the tool of like, the volume should never raise this level, and you can actually measure the level of decibels with this app that is like super easy, you can download, and then because this will affect this and this and this and these birds and this and this and this, then they will have the tools to change their behavior. But right now, so auditing is important, but I think it is important to have the right auditing and not just to get the badge of like, we're responsible, but we don't really know what we're doing. And that's why we always take this scientific approach to not just be like, this is what we think is nice, but to have
use the evidence,
the information that is relevant. And I think it will be good for the people, again, to find those companies that are really like, right now it's so hard to know which sanctuary is really a sanctuary and which one is not a sanctuary, because they're called all sanctuaries, and some are not, and some are yes, and some are not. If you go whale watching, which one is the company that is like with a small boat that they took care of using an engine that doesn't make so much noise? Which one is the one that I will get information about the whales, that they will have a respectful approach to the whales? You see the same pictures on the webpage.
Yeah,
so
it's really difficult to identify the responsible companies.
Auditing, at least, then you could say, this one's yes, this one's no. Then it's up to the person traveling to pick one or the other. But right now,
yeah, but I think the best part of auditing is the assessment and the improvement that they can make later from that outcome of the audit.
Yes. Well, I think you touched on something important there. It shouldn't be about getting a badge or ticking a box. So what do you think, we can call them many things, but what should we be doing beyond the paperwork? The paperwork is, is you could say it's part of the evidence, but what should we do beyond that to sort of
the real actions?
Do you mean like us, like a travelers or
the companies?
Yeah, well, I suppose. Well, let's put it this way: have you seen examples of operators that do it well, and why did they do it well? What did they do that was better than just the paperwork?
From my perspective, is actually the CEO. It is actually interested in nature, like he's doing his business from the passion for the animals and not from the money. I would say
from the business. That makes a lot of difference. You can really see which ones are really interested in protecting and doing research and conservation, and the ones that is just a business. But as you were saying, maybe there's a lot of companies that they have all this paperwork and everything is in place, but then in real practice, the guides doing the activity or leading the activity, that's another problem we have faced, it that those guides are not aligned with the company's strategy.
But there's no communication.
There's no communication, and maybe the company wants to be sustainable and responsible, and they have all these things in place, but then they have a guide that has never been trained in this topic, and the guide is doing all the things that they shouldn't be doing, like chasing the animals, feeding them,
the turtles,
going and touch them and whatever, like just for the picture, for the tourists. So
I think one thing as tourists that we could do, I mean, it's a big request, I would say, but we should actually be very careful of social media. We should not normalize these things. Like, that is, I think, a responsibility from all of us. I mean, if you're in South Korea and you're so lucky that an elephant seal comes and start playing with your boot, have it as a memory, but don't post it on social media, because we're normalizing things that should not be normalized.
I think also as tourists, another thing we can do that I try to do everywhere I go is talking with the company or with the guides, like trying to explain them like why we don't want anymore to feed those turtles or to feed those animals or to do these kind of practices, like because they don't understand it and they think they are like, no, but I've gained my tips doing all my life because people wanted the pictures with the animal, and now I don't get that you don't want it. So trying to explain that, yeah, you don't want it anymore, or that this is not the way of tourism we want, or we don't want to impact any animals or to disturb them. So I think, yeah, telling the businesses so they can get our perspective.
And I guess, unfortunately, nothing will change until it's mandatory on the legislation.
But doesn't it start with good storytelling? I mean, you said you come across good operators who are passionate about doing it well. So shouldn't we be getting people to look for good, positive signals, not just the badges? And so what kind of stories should we be encouraging to be told? And that will become the stories of the future.
Before we get into that, I mean, what you said with the companies, it is right. The problem is that the good story of the nice company who is like a passionate owner that does it from the love of, like, we have it here in Tenerife. That one will cost you 70 euros and the other one will cost you 12. So if in theory they look like the same and there is nothing to differentiate you, which one would you pick? It is tricky. It is tricky because, of course, when you cannot keep the same price, I mean, you cannot sell the eggs at the same price if you have only 20 hens in the ground, yeah, or you have 1,000 or 10,000. You cannot. And yeah, that is one issue, I will say. But with good stories, there is actually a nice story here in Tenerife.
Yeah.
But I don't know. What do you mean exactly?
We want to hear it. We want to hear the stories.
So there is a whale watching company here in Tenerife that is called, I mean, it's sustainable whale watching, and they do it very well. So then the people that is part of that company, they're so passionate about not only what they do about their environment, about the Canary Islands, about the whales, about everything. Yeah. They also do diving. So there was a place here that it was very epic to go diving, because you usually saw sea turtles there, and it became so crowded on boats, divers, snorkelers, but also like overfishing, that at the end it became like the turtles were gone, and it was all full of sea-urchins because there was no fish. There was not the turtles eat.
There was an invasion, yeah.
There was an invasion, and also there was not enough turtles. The system got out of control. It wasn't like, it became a desert of sea-urchins. So then he in his free time, out of passion, people working in this whale watching company, when they were going diving, or when they were not going out to see the whales, will go diving, and they had a plan where they will like open the Sea-Urchin so that you're basically like you're killing them, but they're also becoming food for the little fish that they were. So you're not only taking them out, but you're also like kind of using them in a smart way. And the whole system got completely recovered. Like the sea turtles came back, the fish came back, it became again like beautiful and nice. And that was out of their passion, their free time, and their goodwill. It's very inspiring, I think. And who wouldn't want to contribute to people who do that in their free time? I mean, who wouldn't want to help them? Yeah, but I don't know if you meant this type of stories.
Yeah. Well, I was also thinking, isn't there an example, for instance, on the Galapagos Islands, where not only are visitors restricted, but there is a rotation system, so they don't always visit the same places at the same time, and sometimes the gaps can be more than one season, several seasons. It's been recognized as a very unique place with a very unique set of animals and marine life. So if we were to promote that kind of approach in more places, how much of a difference do you think that would make?
I think it will make a huge difference.
It will make a huge difference. Now, thinking of nice stories, now that you mentioned Galapagos, it just came to my mind. When I was in Costa Rica, I was working for it's an organization called Sea Turtle Conservancy, and they started working there because it's one of the beaches in the world with most sea turtle hatchlings. Yeah. So they were having like thousands and thousands of green turtles every year. And what happened is that the poachers, they were killing the turtles, and there was a lot of illegal traffic, and they were killing the green, like the big turtles, but also the eggs, like for eating and for selling. And at some point, the population declined so much that they were almost like inexistent. But they were receiving tourists. So then at some point they thought, okay, what if we change this and we use the tourism as a good for this? So what they did was, of course, in collaboration with the destination and with the community, the good thing is that they really involved the local people. And what they did was train these poachers and people that they were killing the turtles, that they were the experts on finding them and finding the nests of the turtles. They are the ones who know when they are arriving and what time, where in the beach, like everything about them. They train them and make them like guides for tourists. So then they ban all the illegal activities like all the poaching, and these guides started showing the tourists around like with the turtles. So they, instead of gaining money from the illegal stuff, they started gaining money from being tourism guides. So then these people are the ones now taking, if you want to go and see the sea turtle nesting in Costa Rica, you will have to go for a guide. It's mandatory. You cannot go on your own, and then you will have to go with these guys, and they take you in the beach at night, and they show you everything very carefully, and they give you all the explanations and the educational part. And now they are the ones protecting it, because they actually experienced the time when there were no turtles and they didn't have money to live from it. So now it's a good story of tourism having like a good impact in this case.
Yeah, like transforming it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I've heard similar stories about gorillas in Uganda.
Yeah, exactly.
Where the former poachers are now gamekeepers.
Yeah, those are the ones that have been working all their lives with the animals and know them the best, and where they live and where they are and how they behave. But it's just a way of changing minds and informing and training and educating, because I think the good companies or these success stories companies are the ones that are aware that if they want to continue doing this whale watching, for example, in 10 or 15 years, they need to be taking care of it right now, because
That's
not
change,
yeah.
their model.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Now, you both enjoy observing animals. Would you say you are now understanding the language of animals?
Some of them, not all of them. I would say, because of course every species is different, and we are not experts in all the species, and there are a lot of them that I've never seen in the wild, for example.
Yeah.
But from the ones that you have experienced working them with cetaceans, for example, that we have both of us, I think we can see things that normal people that haven't worked with these animals probably won't see, or you won't recognize as a red flag or as an indicator of stress or poor welfare, or but I think there are many things. We always talk about this paper with the sloths, for example, that things that normal people cannot recognize, like there's a study on sloths when you take the selfies with them, that they showed that they are very calm and slow animals, and they don't have these super evident signs of stress, but they actually show stress, like raising their arms, or how was it, like moving like with some head movements, stuff like that. And you probably, as a tourist, see the sloth raising their arms, and they will be like, "Oh, he wants to hug me," or people makes assumptions that they are not actually what is the reality. So we can see some things that probably some others don't, but it's not that we understand every single animal.
We're learning a lot. Like, we started deeply with the camel audits, and then, for example, we learned that males kind of like regurgitate foam when they're in breeding season. And then, of course, you see that and you're like, oh my God, he's having like an epileptic attack, or I don't know, is something really wrong with this camel? And then it's normal. So every species is a world. But there are some common signs that we can easily recognize, as Ariana said. Yeah.
So, well, I've been dolphin watching. I wasn't near enough to hear them clicking, but I've watched the programs where people say, well, that's their communication systems. What situations have you been in when you've been studying certain animals perhaps closer than tourists would go? Do you sometimes feel that they're trying to tell you a story?
The animals. That's a good question. I'm usually sometimes I'm a bit cold with this. Because how will you say? We tend to put a lot of our human emotions into them, and we tend to, the same way that we feel that we want to connect with them, sometimes we're assuming that they want to connect with us. But after working with animals for many years, especially on their intelligence and communication systems, you see that they're a bit like they're on their lives. They're having a lot to think about, to actually, I will say, care much about us
to deal with.
So I like, the best experiences that I've had, of course, is like when with dolphins is pretty amazing, because when you go out with dolphins, of course they start bow riding. Sometimes they're looking at you, and sometimes babies even, like, you can see that they're really looking at you, and then you feel a connection. Or like if you go in the water, they come check you out. They might play with the bubbles, but see, this is the thing, is like, well, are they playing with the bubbles, or actually they're just scratching their bodies with the bubbles? Because of course they cannot really scratch themselves, and this is nice, and like, it's a lot of interpretation, and I don't know, it's always like, is this I don't remember the name of the philosopher, but it's like, why are we always trying to connect with these very intelligent animals, right? You will not feel a connection with a worm or with with like an ant. You know, you have an ant in front of you and you're not like, oh my God, look, we're having a great magical encounter. It's always with an elephant or with a dolphin. And then it's like the same way we don't care about the ant and we're not connecting with the ant. Why are we thinking the elephant is wanting to connect with us? And often is just, I mean, it really depends on their motivations. When they seek a contact is either because of something that they've learned, something that is because we're in a perspective of like we're safe. We're not in. I mean, unless you're in the middle of the jungle, but you know you're on the boat. Nothing will happen to you. Or like when you're seeing an elephant, you're usually like, I don't know, protected somehow. So you're from this privileged position of like, you know, you're not in danger, but they are in like, they're not in the ocean being free of like, there's sharks, there's boat strikes, there is like, so then it's like, we're still one more stimulus that is potentially dangerous. And even though they've never encountered anything negative with us, we're still like, so I don't know, sometimes I think we feel more special than we are for them. That's my conclusion.
No, but that's true. And there was also this paper that you found out that we sometimes this curiosity we think they have for us when they have done research with these kind of animals, then it's translated that it's not curiosity. I mean, it looks like curiosity, but then it's stress, or they are like alert because we are there and they think they are predators and they are just looking at us because of that. Or so it's very difficult to really know what they are thinking or what they are. Yeah.
Sometimes I think that the magical encounters are a bit of, we're seeing what we want to see.
Yeah. No, and I think you hit that right on the head. I think it circles back to when we have, we have encounters with our domestic pets. We almost humanize them. We make toys out of them and we give them to our children.
And in that case, I mean, if you think about it, they're domestic. We have selected the ones that can read our body language and that they can understand us, the ones that are more calm, the ones that show friendly behavior with us. So that is completely different. Then with a domestic animal, you can definitely have way more like connections and special relationships and stories of like, because that's what we have made them for.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But maybe it all circles back to education, because I've seen some wonderful stories about horses in the wild. A lady I met, she went out to Mongolia and spent, I don't know, a week, 10 days with Mongolian families following wild horses. And how she described them was nothing like you would see a domestic horse. You know, the British, and I'm sure the British aren't the only ones, but we love horse racing, and we breed horses and we have races, and we think all these horses are so beautiful, but they, in a sense, they bear no relationship to their free, the free version of the horse.
Wild counterparts,
yeah.
They're wild counterparts, yeah. And you can tell immediately they're not calm, they jump about, they love running, and they have no inhibitions, and they go wherever they want. And if they're interested in you, it's a brief encounter, and once they've satisfied their curiosity, they clear off. So yeah, education. So isn't that really what it boils down to at the end of the day? If we want better encounters, don't we need to be investing a lot more in educating it's not just about visitors. We need to be educating everyone. So where do you think we should be putting the effort and selling the idea?
I think everywhere, because the thing is that if the companies don't sell it, but the people is asking for it, then we have a problem. But if the people is not asking for, there will always be people who will be asking for things that are irresponsible, of course, because we have all type of people in the world. But I think it should be somehow everywhere, so that the companies understand the impact of their actions, that they're aligned with the guides, so that the guides also understand the impact of their actions, and that the people stop demanding certain types of activities. Then it will all move forward to a better model of activity. And because it's like, if you say, let's put it on the governments, and then they start forbidding things. I mean, in the Canary Islands, it's forbidden to feed wildlife. And if you go diving, they will feed the stingrays and the turtles. And it's forbidden. But they will do it.
Yeah, but there's no education and much training.
Yeah, exactly. So
that's
then
where it should be the focus. Yeah.
It's so if you only put it in one place, if it's only the tourists, then they do the activity, then they feed the turtles, they don't like it, then they say to the guide, I don't like it that you're feeding the turtle, and then they say, oh, what a annoying person. Ugh. So I think it's gotta be a lot of work.
Yeah, well, we have to start somewhere. We talked a little bit about regulation and the fact that some countries are better at it than others, but doesn't it still come back to regulation on its own isn't enough? Shouldn't we be encouraging high standards of actually doing it in practice? Would look like good practice?
I mean, good practice, it really depends on the activity. Again, because you cannot it will not be the same in one place or in other. It's not the same a zebra, a giraffe, a lion, but it's not the same an African lion or an Indian lion, and it's not the same blue whale or a gray whale. So when it comes to practice, it really needs to be very specific, so that if blue whales are critically endangered, which they are, and they have these big migrations, and if you want to sell it, then I mean, I'm not sure, because of course I'm very out of how regulation works, but at some point it's like you need to have a standard of so this is the time that this particular animal can be impacted. So if we do whale watching on blue whales, it can only be 3 hours a day, for example, and it can only be 2 boats at a time, and it can only be half an hour each boat. But then that maybe is too strict when you are talking about humpback whales, because humpback whales, they it's also it depends on the animal.
Yeah, it's very different
because some animals are much better at impacts. You have it's called neophobic or neophilic. So for example, zebras, they react really dramatically about a little change, and then lions is more okay, fine, I don't care. So so when it comes to regulation, it has to be, I think, species and activity specific, when you take into account just animal welfare and you're not taking into account culture, ethics, and other human-made, then if you only take into account animal welfare, it should be something that is global, because it's just...
Yeah, but I think when we talk about general terms or general standards for these kind of activities, we always talk about choosing companies that are legal. It looks very basic, but there are a lot of them that they are not. That they have guides, or the guides that have been instructed in those topics, that they are participating in conservation or research projects, and they have an educational purpose. that they have a code of conduct on how to treat the animals. And then inside that code of conduct, of course, not feeding, not touching, not harassing the animals, not chasing them, not disturbing the behaviors of the animals, following the paths that are established, for example, for the safaris, or in the water, like don't entering like in the protected areas that are not allowed, or like following those kind of norms. I think that's like the super basic, but then depending, like respecting the distances sounds super basic. Don't leaving trash like in the environment are super silly things, but people still do it. So
alrighty, well, circling around to our chat today, I just really wanted to get your feeling for, well, where do you see AnimalWise going in the future? What would you like it to achieve? You know, what are your goals? What are your hopes and dreams for your day?
Very ambitious. So I think, or I wish that AnimalWise at some point becomes like the company of reference for animal welfare in tourism. So at this time, our goal is to promote the sustainable tourism and activities related to animals through, as we were saying, education, research, consulting for the businesses, auditing to improve the standards. I think one of the other goals is to set these standards in the industry that are recognized globally and that everyone can use. So we know it will take time, and of course, if it's not mandatory and there are not regulations everywhere, it's difficult because the companies, they don't have it integrated yet, really. But as with this new regulation from the UK, I think probably in 5-10 years, then it will come to a European level regulation. And then from that, I think we can
hopefully improve.
Yeah.
I think the goal is that, yeah, animal welfare is being considered in animal-related activities. And, I lost track.
No, what was our goal? And
yeah, I mean, I had
we
something
envision it in the future.
Yes. And this is also like, I think it's very important for us that, so we don't want to see animal welfare compromise within the tourism industry, but we also, when it comes to animal welfare, it is important for us to have a very like broad overview. And I think like a good example would be like, we're not so strict. We want to help the companies to do the transition slowly, because it can sometimes be really drastic. So like, for example, 10 years ago it's okay to ride an elephant, and then today it's not okay to ride an elephant. And then this was from one day to the next, and all tour operators are like, we're not selling this because this is mistreating the animals. And then it's like, okay, if we look at this from the animal welfare perspective, what do we do with these elephants now? You're saying we're not doing this. Obviously, riding elephants is not good. But if you look at the welfare of that elephant that has been ridden for his whole life, now the people don't have money to buy them food. They don't have money to keep them. Then maybe they have to euthanize them. They have to maybe like not take care of them anymore. The welfare of that elephant is being negatively affected by a decision that we think is responsible. So these transitions have to be done slowly and with help, because the focus should be the animal welfare and not this looks bad now on us, or but what is the alternative?
So do you feel there are reasons to be optimistic as long as we follow the right principles?
Yeah, we always need to be optimistic. That's the only
we have to.
Yeah. No, I think it will come. It will come. It takes time, but we are already seeing.
We're seeing on the people, yeah.
Yeah, we are seeing change in the people, in the tourists. They don't want to do some kind of activities, or if they do it, they are more careful, or they want to know how they should do it, or how they can do it in a more responsible way. and they are starting to think about all these things,
Yes.
like, is it okay if I do this activity, or is it not? How I am impacting on these animals? And I think it's they are changing their way of traveling. So it will take time. I think it's what the example that I always
With
put
the eggs,
is
right?
with the eggs. Like 10 or 15 years ago, no one cared about where the eggs were raised and like if they had any animal welfare badge or not. No one cared. But now you go to the supermarket and everyone is looking on
Making
the welfare.
more responsible decisions.
Exactly. So it will come with time.
And that's a positive way for us to conclude our conversation today. So I just wanted to express my gratitude for you coming on today and sharing important views on animal welfare. So thank you, Ariana and Sarah, for coming on today.
And thank you,
Thank
Alex,
you
for inviting
us. Yeah, it was a pleasure.
No,
had
you're
a
most welcome.